Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at different types of dinosaur nests and how to build them on Prehistoric Kingdom. We have 4 different nests to show you, but before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. For our first nest, I'm going to be showing you a classic nest made out of sticks. So imagine you're a Spinosaurus out here in the swamp. The breeding season has come along and you're looking for a safe place to build your nest. Well, I'll tell you where I would be building mine if I were a Spinosaurus. I'd be building it on a small island like this one that I've made. Because if you were to build your nest on the mainland, you run the risk of having your nest raided by these guys, Carcharodontosaurus. And if they find your nest, they will eat all the eggs and you'll have no offspring left. So it's much better to build your nest on an island like this, because then the predators have to swim across and try and get your eggs. So you're making it a bit harder. They can still get across, but it's much more difficult for them. And on this island we have plenty of building materials for the Spinosauruses. We have lots of dead trees and branches that have fell off on the floor, so they can pick up these branches and carry them over and start building their nest over here in this cozy corner. And once the eggs are laid, one can sit on the nest and keep guard, whilst another goes off and hunts for fish and then brings it back for their partner or for their babies when the babies finally hatch. So yes, I think this is the perfect place for the Spinosauruses to start a family. So let's get on with building this wooden nest. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to put in is this circular shaped compost. So this will be bits of twigs and leaves that the dinosaurs have gathered into this circular shape, and this is going to be the base of the nest, because in places like this, swamps and wetlands, the ground can get very damp, so you want to have a base layer to put the eggs on, because if you put them straight on the ground they might soak up some water, they might become waterlogged, and the embryos inside the nest could actually die. So we put this down first as a little bit of a layer to protect them from that damp. And we're also going to be using this circular shape as a template to start putting our twigs around the edges, which you can see I'm doing here. Now you've got plenty of sticks to choose from, so make sure you use a wide variety of sticks. Don't just use 1 or 2, because it will look a little bit daft. If you go out in nature, no 2 sticks are ever the same. They're all different shapes and sizes, so make sure you use as many different types as possible. You can see on the panel down there you've got 17 different ones to choose from. However, if you do notice that some of your sticks look too similar or it looks a bit repetitive, you can change the size of them. You can make them a bit smaller or a bit larger, or you can change the shape. You can elongate the stick, making it a bit longer, or you can squash it, and this will disguise your sticks, making it look like an actual individual stick rather than you've just copied and pasted one stick several times. Now, after a while, this can get a little bit boring, so to speed things up, what you can do is when you're happy with a group of sticks, you can click on this group and copy and paste them. This is what I'm doing now. You can see you can go around the circle, and this will make things much easier and a heck of a lot quicker. And you can also build these up on top of each other to make the walls of the nest a bit higher. You can change the size of the group so it doesn't look too repetitive. And once you've got the main structure of your nest, you can add in a few sticks here and there just to fill in any gaps.
Once you're happy with your nest, it's time to put in the eggs. For this, you can click on this circular shape here, and we'll shrink it down to about the size of a Spinosaurus egg, which is about 17 inches long. That is one big egg. We're going to now stretch the egg to make it look like that of a theropod. You can see here now it's starting to look very much like a dinosaur egg. Then it's time to choose your colour. Now most eggs today are often white or a little bit of an off-white, maybe a creamy colour, but there are some eggs that are actually quite colourful. You can get eggs that are a little bit of a pinky colour or a bluey colour. Some birds do lay eggs that have quite bright colours like this, but for the Spinosaurus I don't think it suits blue or pink. I think a bit of a creamy colour would suit the Spinosaurus perfectly. The next thing we're going to do is place our eggs inside the nest. Now most theropods place their eggs in a circular shape, so to help you do this you can put down a circle like this as a template. If you just try to eyeball it, you'll probably make your eggs, it won't look like a circle, it'll look a mess. So put this down to help you, so you can put them in a nice circle and it'll look very neat and very tidy. And for the last bit of detail, we're going to put a little bit of trampled terrain. Imagine these Spinosaurus parents have been walking around this nest, guarding it, protecting it, so the ground is going to become a little bit trampled, so you can just go over it here with a bit of sand, darker sand, or some pebbles and things like that. Don't overdo it, just make it look like it's been worn down a little bit.
And here is the nest once it's complete. Our Spinosauruses have worked incredibly hard gathering all of this wood, and look at them, they look like very proud parents watching over their offspring and keeping them safe from predators. You'll notice as well I put in these 2 trees just to give the eggs a bit of shade. We don't want them cooking in the hot African sun. And once the sun starts to move round to the other side as it gets later on in the day, the Spinosauruses can actually lie down here and use their sail as a shield to shade their eggs so they don't cook. And once it gets a bit cooler at night, they can perhaps sit on them and keep them warm. And you can see I put in around 20 eggs. Now, we don't know how many eggs Spinosauruses actually laid because we've never found a nest before. But most theropods lay around 20 eggs, so I'm going for 20, which is a lot of offspring to look after. So once they hatch, these 2 are going to have their work cut out for them.
And here we are, once all the eggs have hatched. 20 baby Spinosauruses exploring the world for the first time. Now the parents will do their best to protect them, but at this time period in Africa, their chances of survival are incredibly slim. Not all of them are going to make it because in Cretaceous North Africa there are so many predators. Predators like this, Carcharodontosaurus, and if they get chance they will eat one of these babies for a snack. And up above there are giant pterosaurs that may swoop down and grab one of these babies. And in the water there are huge crocodiles like Sarcosuchus, and if one baby strays away from their parents, bang, they're going to get devoured. Moving on to the next nest, the stone nest.
So imagine you're a little velociraptor out here in the desert. It's the breeding season and you need to find a safe place to build your nest for your eggs. Well, the last place I'd be building mine is down here on the ground because you run the risk of being discovered by these guys, Tarbosaurus, and if they find you, they most certainly are going to devour your eggs. So down here is not the best option. I'll tell you what the best option is. Up here on these cliffs. This is the perfect place. Raptors are very nimble and quite small, so they'll be able to climb up here, whereas the Tarbosaurus are not so agile and quite large, so it's going to be quite difficult for them to climb up here and get to the raptor's nest. Now, there's not a lot of sticks up here, maybe a few branches falling off these shrubs, but not much sticks at all. But there is a lot of rocks falling and coming loose from these cliffs, tumbling down and smashing into smaller rocks down here. So the raptors can pick up their little rocks, bring them over here and start building their nest. Now, you don't want to build too close to the cliff, because then you're going to have rocks toppling down and hitting you on the head, or maybe even breaking your eggs. So you want to make sure you're a safe distance away from the cliff. But up here is a perfect place for these guys to build a nest, out of reach from predators out there and safe. So let's get on, let's get cracking and build these velociraptors a rock nest.
Okay, let us begin. So the first thing that you want to do is click on this cylinder shape and then flatten it to the ground. This is going to give you a nice template for your nest. If you try to eyeball it, just putting rocks in a circle, you might make it a little bit wonky. So if you put this down, it's going to make sure that you make your nest nice and circular, and it'll be really neat. It won't be all wonky and all over the place. So once you've done that, the next thing you want to do is start putting down small rocks. Make them small enough so it looks like a raptor could manage to pick it up and bring it over here. It's not too large. So you want them about the size that they could pick them up in their mouth and bring them over, or even a bit bigger. Maybe they could roll them with their snout if it's a bit of a heavier rock. So you can go a little bit larger. And you want to make sure all your rocks are different shapes and sizes. Don't make them the same. If you go out in nature, you'll notice rocks are all different shapes and sizes. No two rocks are ever the same. If you do that, it's going to look really weird. It's just going to look wrong. It won't look natural at all. So you can use the tools here to turn them around, squash them, and change the shape of them. Now, once you've done that, you can start to copy those rocks and start to place them around the boundary of your nest template. So think about where they're going to go, start placing them in, and then balance a few on top of each other, put some smaller ones in the cracks and crevices, and just slowly build it up. Now, once you've got a good chunk of the boundary done like this, rather than carry on, which will take you all day, you can just copy it and then paste it down like this. It'll save you a lot of time. It can get a bit boring just going around plonking rocks around the edges, so this can make it a lot easier. Once you've built the main wall of the boundary, you can then start to go over it, putting in a few rocks that have fell out of place. You can also stack them on top of the wall you've already made if you want to make them a bit higher. Once you're happy with the placement of the stones, you can add in a few sticks here and there. Now, I know this is meant to be a rock nest, but the raptors may be able to find the odd stick or two. There are a few bushes and brambles around the outskirts of the nest, so they may be able to find a few bits and bobs that they can put on the edges of the nest. Now that the nest is pretty much complete, it's time to put in the eggs. So as you can see here, I've clicked on this ball and shrunk it down to about the same size of a velociraptor egg. But then we need to change the colour of it. We don't want it completely white, maybe a bit of an off-white I think will do. Once you've chosen your colour, you can then change the shape. Now, velociraptors, like many other theropods, most likely laid long shaped eggs like this. So you can see I'm just stretching it there and even shrinking it down a bit more, I think it still was a bit too big. I'm just putting it next to the Velociraptor here to really get an idea of the size of the egg. Velociraptor's eggs are about the same length of a human hand and about 2.8 inches in diameter. Once you're happy with your egg, you can then copy and paste it and put them in a nice circular formation. Many theropod dinosaurs used this technique, and they could then sit in the middle and guard their eggs. And if it got too hot, the sun beating down on these eggs, the Velociraptor could spread its feathers on its arms, I was going to say wings then, and shield the eggs from the sun. And also the same technique for at night. It gets rather cold in the desert at night, so if it gets too chilly, the Velociraptor can cover the eggs and keep them warm. And for the last bit of detail for your nest, I'm going to be adding here a bit of terrain. So I'm just going to make it look a bit trampled. So think about it, the raptors will be coming back and to here and trampling over the ground. So I've just gone over it with a bit of sand, darker sand, and then adding a few rocks just to make it not stand out like a sore thumb. A few rocks here and there, just scattered about. And here is our finished product. And I must say I'm rather pleased with how it looks. The eggs look very nice and neat there in a circle, and the rocks and twigs look very natural, looks like something that an actual animal would make. But as we know, velociraptors may have been pack hunters, so why stop at just one nest? You can see here I've made 3 nests. So this is a pack of 6 individuals. We have 3 males and 3 females, and they've all come together to breed. And there are many benefits of living in a group, not just for hunting down prey, but also more eyes to look out for potential egg thieves. So what may happen is you have 3 individuals stay behind and sit on the nests, and another 3 go out into the desert to look for prey and then maybe bring it back, or possibly regurgitate the food like modern day birds to feed the babies or their partners. Now in each nest we have up to 20 eggs, so that's 60 in total. So when these all hatch, it's going to be absolutely chaos. And here we are when they've hatched, 60 baby raptors. Oh my goodness. Oh my god, where are they all going? Oh my god, they're all charging out into the desert. My god. But realistically, we probably wouldn't have this many. Some eggs probably would get stolen by predators, egg thieves, maybe some pterosaurs coming down, swooping down and stealing some eggs. And many of these babies wouldn't actually make it. Where are they going? Oh my god. Yes, many of them wouldn't make it into adulthood. Some would die from diseases, and others would be picked off by predators. So the amount that would actually make it to adulthood is a very small number indeed. My god, it's like a plague of raptors running out into the desert. Next up we have the Compost Nest.
So imagine you're a Tyrannosaurus Rex out here in the hot, humid tropical forests of North America, and the time has come for you to bring up the next generation. So where do you start? Where do you build your nest? Well, you don't want to build it too close to water, because during the Cretaceous period there were many floods, and if this river or this lake bursts its banks and your nest is too close to it, your nest could become flooded and all your hard work will go to waste. So you actually want to go somewhere a little bit high, somewhere like up here. See this little ledge up here? If the water floods all down here and you've got a nest down here, it's going to be a disaster. So you want to come somewhere up here where it's going to be a bit drier, somewhere like this lovely little clearing. You can see here are Tyrannosaurus parents, female and the male over here, And they've got plenty of building material in the forest, lots of dead vegetation, leaves, twigs and branches, and they can carry these over. The female will lay her eggs, and then they will just cover it with all this vegetation that they've brought out of the forest to protect them from the elements, keep them warm, and make sure they have the best chance of survival.
So to start off, we're going to place down this circular compost mound. Then we're going to stretch it from the top. It looks a little bit too flat there. And then once we've done that, we'll make it a little bit larger. This is a TRex nest after all. And T-Rexes laid enormous eggs, similar in size to that of the Spinosaurus actually, about 17 inches in length. Huge eggs, and they'd lay around 20 of them, 20 of these enormous eggs in one nest, so we must make sure that the nest is big enough to house them all. Interesting as well how all the dinosaurs we've looked at so far all lay around 20 eggs each, and they're all theropods. Very interesting indeed. And as you can see here, I'm just going around the nest and trying to make it look a little bit uneven in places. It just didn't look quite right as a perfect circle. I think it's better to put smaller piles at the bottom and bits that maybe have fell down. It looks a bit more natural like this. And to blend in your nest to the ground, because it does stand out a little bit like a sore thumb here, you can go onto the terrain tools and click on these leaves, and this will just really help to blend your nest into the environment. It'll look like little bits of vegetation have fell down and scattered a bit on the floor, so we'll just slowly blend that in. Lovely. And this style of nest was very popular with lots of different dinosaurs, not just Tyrannosaurus Rex, because basically this is like a giant compost heap that you'd find in a garden. And what it does is, as the vegetation starts to rot, it creates a lot of heat, and this heat keeps the eggs nice and warm. Now, a lot of dinosaurs would have sat on their eggs to keep them warm, but T-Rex is a little bit too big for that. If they sat on their eggs, they'd probably crush them. So instead, they've gone for this compost heated style, where they can just bury their eggs under loads of rotting vegetation, and that will keep them warm. For any Walking with Dinosaur fans, you may remember the last episode where the mother T-Rex makes a nest very similar to this. In fact, it's basically the same thing, it's just a huge compost heap. But do you remember those little mammals that buried their way in to try and steal the eggs, and the mother would come running around and eat them and roar in frustration because she's getting very annoyed because she's losing eggs to these egg thieves? And it's not just these small mammals. Later on in the show we see a dromaeosaur creeping up on the nest, and the mother is sat down by the side of it watching him, and he's just thinking, can I get close enough to rob one of these eggs? And the mother's watching him, he's getting a bit closer, and then she gives out a roar and he just legs it. He's gone, he's off, he's not risking it. But this will be very tiring for the parents. They'd probably take it in turns, I imagine, possibly like birds today. You might have one guarding the nest while the other goes out and hunts, but there would be no rest. If you fell asleep, something could creep over and rob a couple of your eggs. And before you know it, you've gone from 20 eggs to 15. So you must be on duty and alert at all times to make sure that nothing gets into your nest. And here you can see I'm just adding in some small details, a few twigs and branches just poking out and sticking out here, there and everywhere, just to add a bit more detail to the nest really. You don't have to do this. If you're happy with just the mound, you can keep it like that. But if you want it a bit more detailed, you can add these sticks to bring your nest to the next level. And for a last bit of detail here, I'm just going to put in a few smaller mounds that may have fell off from the main mound.
And here we are once our nest is finished. And do you know what? It reminds me of a huge ant's nest. If you ever go into a pine forest, the little pine needles, once they've fallen off the tree onto the ground, the ants will pick them up and gather them into huge mounds similar to this, just obviously not as big. So if you ever find yourself in the Cretaceous period and you come across what looks like an ant's nest, turn around and don't look back, because it's probably a Tyrannosaurus Rex nest. Now in here we'll have around 20 eggs, all being kept warm by this compost heap nest. However, the Tyrannosaurus Rexes will probably have to monitor the temperature of this nest. They may have to stick their snout in it and check if it's getting a bit too warm, because some compost heaps can actually reach over 160 Fahrenheit. That's 71 Celsius, and this is where they can actually spontaneously combust, and that's the last thing that these parents want, their nest catching on fire and all the eggs being cooked. So the T-Rexes will probably have to stick their snout in. If it's getting a bit too warm, they may have to remove some of this vegetation and put it on the side here. And if it's getting too cold, they'll have to check again at night and maybe pick up a bit more and pile it on top again, because we need to make sure those eggs are kept to the right temperature to make sure that they survive. And here we are once all the eggs have hatched. 20 Tyrannosaurus Rex chicks. That's if all the eggs make it and none are stolen. But just like the Spinosaurus and the Velociraptor, most of these chicks will not make it to adulthood. And that's because some will die from diseases, others will die from predators picking them off, and believe it or not, some of them will actually die as a result of their own family members. That's right, some of their brothers and sisters will actually turn against them. Some of you may remember the scene from Walking with Dinosaurs, where two chicks start to bully the runt of the litter and won't allow him to feed. And we see this with modern day birds. Some chicks have been seen pushing out the smaller chick from the nest when the parents are gone. So the stronger chicks will push the weaker ones out and hog all the food for themselves and start to grow much quicker. The weaker ones will be outcast, they won't grow as quick, and they'll probably be picked off by predators or even die from disease. So you've not just got to worry about disease and predators, you've got to worry about your own siblings. Nature really is brutal sometimes.
And for our final nest, we have the dirt nest.
So imagine you're a herd of Edmontosaurus out here on the open plains, and you're looking for a spot to build your nest. Well, these big earthy patches that I've put in would be the perfect place, because there's lots of building material, lots of dirt that you can gather together and mould it into a mound to lay your eggs in. And over here you can see our huge herd of Edmontosaurus. In fact, it's actually not that huge, because these animals could actually live in groups of over 1,000 strong, multiple thousands, and here we have over 100. So imagine that though, 1,000 Edmontosaurus marching through the open plains looking for a nesting ground. Would be incredible to see. And nesting somewhere like this has a lot of benefits, because it's quite hard for predators to set up an ambush for you. There are a few trees for the predators to hide behind, but it's so open that trying to get here it's most likely you're going to get spotted, especially with so many eyes. Look how many eyes there are. You've got more chances of spotting a predator when you live in a big group like this. So there is safety in numbers. And you can see over here in the distance, we have two predators watching the herd already. We've got two Tyrannosauruses, a male and a female, just watching the herd from a distance, weighing them up and potentially seeing whether they can plan a hunt. Anyway, let's get back to the business why we're here. Let's build this dirt mound nest.
Alright, let's begin. So to start off, we're going to use this donut shape, but we're only going to have half of it exposed. The other half will be beneath the ground. We'll stretch it out a bit there. Now it's time to change the texture, and you can see there's lots of options that we can change it to at the bottom there, and then you can change the colour. Now you want to get it as close to the same colour as the ground, which is quite difficult, but you want it to try and look like it's the same soil that they've used to build this nest. Once you've got that in, you can put in this cylinder shape, and this is going to be the floor of the nest. This is where the eggs are going to go. Once you're happy with your nest, it's time to add in the eggs. So you can click on this ball here and shrink it down. Now, Edmontosaurus eggs were actually surprisingly quite small, about 3.5 inches in diameter. For such a big animal, you'd expect it to be a lot larger. And to put things in perspective, an ostrich egg is 5.9 inches in diameter. So the ostrich egg is actually a lot bigger, which is, you wouldn't expect that, would you? You think the ostrich egg would be smaller, but no, surprisingly not. And Edmontosaurus laid much more rounder eggs, not like the elongated eggs that we've seen from the rest of the theropods so far. Yeah, so much more rounded, and they could lay up to anywhere between 15 or 30 of these eggs. So when these hatch, the parents are going to have their work cut out for them. And the last thing that we're going to do is add a bit of vegetation. Some leaves that the adults will have foraged for and brought them back. They probably would have put a layer down first so the eggs have a nice soft blanket of vegetation to lie on, and then placed vegetation over the top of them to shade them from the sun, keep them warm at night. Again, it's a bit like the compost heap nest from the Tyrannosaurus Rex. As that vegetation is rotting, it'll produce heat, and it'll just keep the eggs sheltered in general.
And here it is once it's finished. And you know what? I'm rather happy with it. I think it looks quite good, you know. It's a very simple nest to make, but once it's done, it does look quite good indeed. And then you can just click on it as a group and just copy it and place multiple nests down. You can see I've already done that. I've put many nests down. The Edmontosauruses have chosen their mates and got together in pairs to lay their eggs. And you can see now the benefits of living in a large group like this. If there are any predators lurking around the edges, you can see over here the Tyrannosauruses are lurking in the bushes over here. If one spots them, they can let out a call and let the others know predators are close. But yeah, I think it looks really good, you know. I'm very happy with it. And here we are once all the eggs have hatched. Now, I haven't put in 1,500 babies because I think the game would actually crash. But you get the idea. Just look how many animals there are. Oh my god. It's absolutely chaos. This is a field day for predators. This is like a banquet, because you'll have things like pterosaurs swooping down and picking these babies up. You'll have dromaeosaurs just coming in and picking a few off. Baby tyrannosaurs coming in and eating them as well. And even adult grown rexes, they'll probably come in as well and just gobble one of these up. A bit like the Blue Rhino Studios model that they've made. Oh my god, what's going on over here? Oh my goodness, they're all they're all jammed. Oh dear. I think they're glitching because there's so many of them. But if you haven't seen that model made by Blue Rhino Studios, check it out. It's really, really detailed, and it's based off Sue, one of the largest tyrannosaurs ever discovered. And she's carrying a baby hadrosaur, I think it's an Edmontosaurus, in her mouth. She's picked it up and probably taken it off somewhere to eat it in peace. But yes, look at, oh my god, there's so many of them, my goodness. But there you have it, there is our last nest, the Dirt Mound Nest. And you can see Rexy over here is eyeing up these babies. My goodness, don't go towards him, oh god.
So there we have it, 4 different types of dinosaur nests and how you can build them in Prehistoric Kingdom. Which one is your favourite? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and don't forget to subscribe for more Prehistoric Kingdom